Pensacola Bay. You're looking at the mouth of Pensacola Bay. I'm standing on the western side, western shore of the mouth of Pensacola Bay. Near here was the location of the Civil War Confederate fort, Fort Mcree, that was occupied by Confederate forces very early in the Civil War. To the east, that is Fort Pickens. Just north of that on the main land, as you can see to the right of the lighthouse, would have been Fort Mcree, further down the Navy Yard. That was occupied by Confederate forces early in the war. Now, the location I'm standing at, you would not have want to have been standing on November of 1861. Earlier, the Confederates launched a raid on Union-held Fort Pickens. In retaliation for that, the commander of the Fort Pickens ordered an attack, an assault, a bombardment on Confederate-held Fort Mcree just across the way. So on November 22nd, 1861, the Union Navy vessels, the USS Richmond and the USS Niagara, along with the guns of Fort Morgan, bombarded Fort Mcree on November 22nd. And it was an intense bombardment, but Fort Mcree held out but sustained significant damage. General Bragg, who was in command at Fort Barrancas, denied the request of Fort Mcree's commander to abandon the fort following the heavy damage he sustained on November 22nd. And they held the fort again the following day. The Richmond did not participate because it had been badly damaged from return fire from Fort Mcree. Some of you guys will remember the Richmond was an integral part of the Battle of Mobile Bay in 1864, but earlier it took part in this bombardment of Fort Mcree, but it was incapacitated and damaged on the first day of the fight, November 22nd. 10 a.m. the following day of 1861, November 23rd, 1861, the bombardment continued, and Fort Mcree held out but was very badly damaged, but it remained in Confederate hands. Fast forward to May of 1862, the Confederates decide to abandon their position at Fort Barrancas and Fort Mcree, leaving Pensacola to focus their efforts on other fronts of the Confederacy in the defense of the South versus the Union forces. So General Bragg evacuated Pensacola, and it was reoccupied by Union forces and remained in Union hands throughout the remainder of the war. But this is the remnants of Fort Mcree. It's no longer visible. It's actually underwater. This area was also used during the Spanish-American and the World Wars. The U.S. government put up other military installations here, but this is it. Beautiful area. And again, this was the site of intense bombardment in November of 1861, Fort Mcree, Pensacola Bay.